Session. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening to meet a deaf professional. It's a big honor to have our guest tonight, Brittany Castle. This is her sign name. So before we dive in and learn all about Brittany, I would like to review a little bit about what tonight's going to look like. You're welcome to ask questions about Brittany, about her business, and about her as an artist. And then halfway through, we're going to transition though to Q&A. So if you have a question or a comment, if you wouldn't mind saving that, maybe jot it down. And then during Q&A, you'll have an opportunity. You can either ask a question in the chat box, or you can turn your camera on. The families with deaf children are allowed to ask their questions first. And once they're satisfied, then we will open the floor to community members, students, and anyone else that is in the audience this evening. All right, without further ado, let's focus on our guest this evening, Brittany Castle. Thanks for coming tonight, Brittany, and hanging out with us.
Thank you for inviting me to speak. A little bit about myself. Should I go ahead with an introduction?
Absolutely. We want to know where you're from, where you grew up, a bit about your childhood would be great.
I grew up in Riverside, California. I went to the deaf school there at California, or the School for the Deaf at Riverside. And me and my sister are both deaf, and we're twins. So our father is a CODA, a child of the deaf adult. So that means both of our parents were hearing. My mom had learned ASL by meeting my dad and taking an ASL class. And my mother had already known ASL prior to meeting him, luckily. So going into Gallaudet University, I decided to set up a business after that. So thank you so much.
Great. Your business is graphic design at the university, or Gallaudet University. That was your major anyway. So while you were in graphic design as a major at the university, what kind of business did you see yourself having, or did that happen later? I mean, because did you want to become an artist first, or I mean, when did the business start?
Before going to Gallaudet University, I wanted to be an art teacher. My school had advised me that the vocational rehabilitation team had said that they usually won't support an arts major. They have to do more of a STEM field, and it's easier to get a job that way. So I was thinking, you know, as a math teacher, VR would support me. I didn't love that, so I changed my major to graphic design, and VR was not happy with my major. And I showed them that I was getting all A's and I was ready for an internship the following summer, and then they went ahead and approved it. And I had to work hard to approve that, and I was really doing serious work there. After I graduated in graphic design, and Gallaudet had that as a major, it was in the art department. I had looked for a job after graduating. I applied, but didn't really get anything. And I was trying to get a feel for it. And I decided to set up a business because I always had these short-term gigs. I wanted to have a stable business to work with.
Well, that's wonderful. I know a lot of people out there have a passion, but you know, because they see job opportunities with, you know, whatever, they drop that passion and go into, you know, the mainstream work. So you're saying that you did the exact opposite. You were not going to give up your passion, and you know, you were trying to figure out, how do you make your passion into a business and how to make that work? So it's a wonderful story. What was your motivation or your drive to start this. That really shows your drive and your motivation. So regarding your art, has that been a passion of yours since childhood, or when did that passion start?
I like to draw as a child, and I took some art classes for fun. I wasn't serious about it until a TV producing class, and they said that I had to make a film poster and I had to use Photoshop in order to do that. And I didn't know how, and I asked my dad, who teaches a computer class, and whenever I had gone into the school, my dad transferred schools, but he knew what tools to use. And after that, I picked it up on my own, and I did a lot of self-instruction on YouTube. The graphic design part really intrigued me. I liked it virtual, less so on paper, but I liked the visual effects of being able to use Pinterest to get ideas and references and really practicing in that arena. And it grew to where I'm at now.
That's great. So you talk about graphic design, and I know it's easy for a lot of people to support, but the business side of it is a bit more complex to support. And I'm wondering, did you have support when you decided to set up your business and have your own business?
I did it from scratch. I didn't really have any investment or support, but VR did help me a bit, because when I moved to Washington State from Washington, D.C., I had done freelance work, and in DC, I felt like there wasn't enough opportunity. So I wanted to start a new chapter elsewhere. And I was told that VR can help me start a business. They could invest in me if I prove that I'm a viable option and I have skills. And I was told that I can get
What is that?
It's a digital cut. It's not an iPad. It's kind of like a big computer device.
Like a drawing table.
Right, yes. Not too big, but I started on that, and then I was able to increase my skills, and I realized that I'm able to make art, because in the past I had tried to do what I could with the tools I had, and I had done a graphic design services, and I had a on and off business. It wasn't truly established until I set up a store, and then people could see the art. And a little bit more about the art, I love to
Inspiration.
yes, inspire art, with the blue hair and the logo. I can
let me get a picture up here. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I love that kind of art. I'm looking for it. Oh, here we go. I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, yes, this is the piece, right, that I was referring to. So that was the first one that I had done in 2017. And in 2013, I had made some art that I held on to. I didn't feel satisfied with it yet. My skills weren't up to par. Until 2017, I edited it and I felt, yes, this is it. I need to show my art. I did an art show in Washington, D.C., or in Seattle.
Yeah.
Pardon. And since that art show, I've had a store until now. And I think it had started because of a lot of language deprivation situations that were coming up, a lot of negativity. I didn't feel like there was really a welcoming invitation to learn ASL. I wanted to make art that invited people to learn ASL and say, wow, look how inspiring and beautiful it is. So it was really meant to be a motivation to come and join our language.
And I think that's wonderful. It's always good to have, a duality. It's good to talk about language deprivation, and the negativity and whatnot, but we also need to have something, that I call a light topic, something that makes it the beauty of ASL, the beauty of deaf culture. And if those that are in our audience and don't know anything about business, I suggest that you look at the art, her artwork. Yeah, I mean, I bought some myself. You may want to as well. You mentioned vocational rehabilitation a few times, or VR. I know a few people in our audience may not even know what VR is. So would you mind sharing a little bit more about what VR is? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but
yeah, I'm not an expert with VR.
Let me think about how to spell that. Vocational rehabilitation. Right. That's, and we just call it VR. But what kind of service do they provide?
VR can help people who are disabled to secure employment. They provide resources to get you into college or to get you a job. The VR's goal is a ticket to work program trying to get people in employment. So I've used VR 2 different times, once at Gallaudet University to get into there, and then the second time to help establish my business.
That's great. I know VR is available really in every state. It is considered a state service. And the goal is exactly like you mentioned, for disabled people to get to work. And there's people in our audience possibly maybe wondering how can my deaf child get into college? Or could my deaf child have work opportunities? And how will that happen? So VR is a great resource and a way of support. I've used VR myself when I went to college. And if I wanted to set up a business, I would likely touch base with them as well. Anyway, not to get off track here, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody in the audience knows what VR is, since you mentioned it.
Perfect.
I know some people are thinking, ooh, a deaf person owning their own business sounds like a big challenge and a struggle. But really, I'm asking you, I mean, as a deaf person, were there any barriers to setting up a business or running that business once it was set up as a deaf person?
No, I don't see any difference because I'm a woman who's deaf. There weren't any specific barriers. Luckily for me, in the beginning, I was really awkward with getting my license and learning about that process. Luckily, in the community, there is a business group, and they were able to help me with that. Whenever I joined that business group, it was filled with people who are not deaf, and a lot of times it's virtually, we'll chat with each other, and you don't even need to hear in those learning settings. So I didn't see any barriers with not being able to hear. We were able to have a dialogue and ask questions when needed.
I think that's a really great point, because a lot of resources are out there for setting up a business, and information, is very accessible, compared to how it was, let's say in the 50s or 60s, or even the 70s for that matter. It was much more challenging, but now, I mean, imagine what it'll be like in another 20 or 30 years. Wow, it's just going to be really accessible. So that's excited to think about the possibilities in the future. So we talked about, it could be a challenge to own a business as a deaf person, but what are the benefits to owning a business as a deaf person?
Because the deaf community is small, it's easy to network and to find other like-minded people and to support the deaf ecosystem in supporting deaf local business. And in the deaf community, we have benefited with with having a network online, we're able to get in contact with each other easily, and that helps me advertise through the internet and get more business.
Oh, for sure. Personally, I mean, we wouldn't know about your business if it wasn't for the deaf community, because I see people share your posts and people share your artwork. They share, you know, I remember seeing, well, I think it was a few years ago, a friend of mine shared your artwork, and I saw then another friend share your artwork, and I was like, where have I been? Everybody's sharing your artwork. And I think that's a really cool thing. Oops, I lost my audio. Yeah, my disconnected. So it's really cool about the deaf ecosystem and that point that you made. A lot of people underestimate deaf people, and they saying, oh, you know, there's not a lot of value because the deaf community is so small. No, that's not true at all.
Right.
I'm wondering about any accommodations that you need as a deaf-owned business. Is there any special accommodations that you need to operate your business?
For people who are motivated to learn ASL or who have heard about me through ASL or that they're needing more ASL resources, I will give art to the schools, and then the children become motivated because they see my artwork and they can see ASL art, and there aren't a lot of examples of that. So I try my best to be prolific and to make lots of pieces for people to see. Since 2017, 2018, I still have not seen a lot of access to ASL resources still.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You mentioned that there are many children who don't see ASL produced anywhere, and we need ASL representation in the world. And so I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, how important it is to have that representation, and especially now that you've mentioned it, yeah, it is important. Whether it's at home, at school, really anywhere, it's important to see a representation of me out in the world.
And I would like to add, sometimes I get a message about someone who bought my products, and it's a artist who's not deaf, and then maybe I'm wrong. Or hold on one
Okay,
second.
hold on a
Go
second.
back.
Let's back up and just and go over that one more time. You mentioned that someone would tell you that they bought another book that was made by a hearing person, an artist or whatever, and it was an ASL book from a hearing person. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I have heard that people will tell me that they bought these products and they don't know if it's accurate sign language or not, and they wish that it could be set up a little differently. And because it's a person who's not deaf making the art, they don't have the real insight. I'm using ASL every day, and I do ask linguistics specialists in the field to get feedback on my ASL before I disseminate it. So you don't know if you're getting accurate ASL, and I serve as a consultant in that way.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I have seen ASL, in air quotes, products that are like the wrong hand shape, or like the location of the sign's not accurate. I've seen a Y turned backwards. That's not right. But you're correct. People who don't know ASL, they don't know the difference and might think, hey, that's right. So yeah, that's definitely misinformation. But it shows you how valuable your work really is, Brittany.
Correct.
Something else I'm wondering about is communicating with your clients, communicating with other business partners. Is that communication easy or not?
Most of the time it's communication through email, but sometimes, since I am a strong ASL user and writing in English is not really my thing, sometimes I'll ask someone to write it for me if I explain to them what I want to say. And then if it's for an educational purpose or a serious letter, because I do get nervous writing in English. I don't want them to judge me based on that. So if I have someone assist me with it, I'd feel a little better if they could edit it. And also I use Zoom. If they're deaf, we can communicate. And typically with people who are not deaf, we use email.
Yeah, actually, I like that. It's camaraderie, the idea of camaraderie. Many people don't even realize that there are options. And I never really thought about it actually for myself, but you're right. Sometimes we do. I get a little anxiety when I think about, well, how am I communicating in my second language, which is English? Because in sign language, I don't even have to think twice. But in English, I do. I have a similar experience. I have to think, ooh, yikes. I mean, I just the right vocabulary word. Did I select the right word? I mean, I can, the camaraderie really helps.
Copywriter.
Thank you. The copywriter really helps. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
So that's one example of an accommodation that you use. But I'm wondering, do you have any deaf-blind people? They're in our audience. We may have a deaf-blind person in our audience. And I didn't realize, how would you make your artwork more from a visually accessible standpoint?
On social media, you can add visualizations at the bottom, visual tags. I'm not well versed with deafblind accessibility. I don't know the best answer, but I know some of the basics. So you can specifically ask that person that you're working with to get the appropriate answer. But with a picture, usually you'll see a lot of images on social media, but underneath them, you can see a visual description. So I'll sign a little bit, and at the bottom, I'll write what I have behind me, what color I'm wearing on my shirt, what my hair looks like, and that visual description can help with people who are deafblind or a transcript.
Yeah, I know that seems like very basic, but so many people don't even realize that that is a thing. Visual descriptions or describing background. What does it look like? What is the shirt the person is wearing, or their hairstyle for that matter? So before we transition to the Q&A portion of our event tonight, do you have any final comments about your background, the work that you do, the art that you make that you would like to share with us?
I don't know. I hadn't thought of anything specific. Yeah, no, if something comes up, I'll let you know.
Well, I have a good idea. We can do a link of your business on a shared screen here. Perfect. I just posted it actually in the chat. So if somebody wants to look at your art while we're in the Q&A and get them thinking about some questions they'd like to ask, it's a great chance to do that. So I'm going to open up the Q&A portion of our event. And again, a gentle reminder, we allow the families with deaf children to ask their questions first before we open the floor to other people, community members, for example, students and whatnot. The first question is directed at me, but it's from Susie. And she said, why did you pick 58 Creativity, Brittany, as your business name?
Well, there is ASL grammar in that, because the hand shapes 5, 8 are used to say interesting, 5, 8. So I use that to say interesting creativity, 5, 8 creativity, or discover,
Okay.
interesting. You use the same hand shapes for both discover and interesting, and I wanted to have that meaning in creating art and continuing to create art.
Wow, I personally love that myself. Yeah, great question, Susie. Does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to put it in the chat or open up your camera if you'd like. Or you can voice for yourself if that's something that you would like to do, and the interpreters would be more than happy to sign for you.
And I will go and make a comment. Right now, I have finished a book. It's a signing stories book. There's no words. It's
A
a classifier book. There's no words, but it has pictures that can be incorporated into sign language. So you think of a story visually, not literally word by word. And you can use it for international students who may not sign perfectly or have English comprehension. So I'm almost finished with that visual storybook.
Oh, this is super exciting. I can't wait to see it when it gets out on the store shelves. I'll be the first customer to buy the very first copy. There is another comment from Pauline. Who is your favorite deaf artist?
Let me think. Wow. Deaf artist?
Yeah, it can be just anybody. It can be one person, it could be several.
Okay. I usually follow a lot of artists who are not deaf, like
Fingerspell that name for us again.
Jen Bartel. She's an artist that uses a lot of loud colors and will create cartoons and shoes and different things. And I met her in person. I was able to say hello to her before she became super famous designing shoes. She does incredible work. Now, for artists who are deaf, I can't pick one. There's so many. And because I prefer digital art. Painting, I'm so about, but digital art is my niche.
Well, one thing I'd like to add to that, actually, do you know that there was a large group of deaf artists in, I think it was the 70s or 80s, maybe the 90s, give or take. And I feel like right now in our time, I don't see a lot of artists. You know, it's mostly digital art, like you have just mentioned. But I don't see a lot of other type of artists working with other media. And I'm hoping that people like you will start, open that door again. And deaf people will say, you know what, that is something that I can do. I can produce art and share it with the world. So you are really a role model in our time as a deaf artist.
I think Jessica Bartel that I mentioned, she's from California, and there's another artist who's deaf. I think it's Wawa and Keely Martin and Matt Dingle. There's lots of different deaf artists that are doing good work right now. They're my friends too. And I talk with them often because I do have an art gathering every 2 weeks where we get together and discuss our work, discuss our business, so we don't feel so isolated and working in silos. Especially during the pandemic, we set up a ritual meeting and we're still going after 3 years now.
Yeah, during COVID, there were many things set up actually to bring people together and so that life could continue on. So that was a big benefit that we had something like that. So it seems like our families with deaf children are a bit quiet tonight. So we'll go ahead and open up the floor to everyone else. Sharon, Brian, you said you have some questions, but just hold on a second. I want to make sure I spotlight you. Perfect. There she is. Sharon says, oh, it's wonderful. You're incredibly skilled. And I'm definitely looking forward to the website. I do have questions, though. The internship at Gallaudet, did you have an internship through Gallaudet?
In my time, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes,
in your time.
Yes, there was 3 internships, one at Gallaudet, one off campus, and one was for photography, and the other was for marketing and working in that department, and a few other great ones that I would go to. I would visit their offices, and I would have strong connections with the marketing department. And graphic design, they had a service company working with graphic designs, and I did an internship with them for 1 year.
That's fantastic. My second question, when you started your business early on, did you market the business yourself? Because you mentioned the internet and networking, and that you had mentioned that already, but I'm wondering, how did you kind of step through that process in the early years?
On the business side of things, I was freelancing and I would get good referrals. Word of mouth helped spread the word, and social media, my current social media, is where I do most of my advertising. Before I had a business, I would ask people, would you mind to share my video? And they would spread that and it'd go viral. So it helped my business grow. And I'm happy that I was able to reach out and have that shared. If not, I'd still be in the dark. It would have been harder to share.
Well, thank you for answering my questions. And Briella says, thanks, Sharon, for asking them. There is another question. It was sent as a private message to me. The question is, in our program, we have a few families that have twins. Some of them are have 2 deaf twins, and some of them will be 1 deaf and 1 hearing twin. So I'm wondering, with your experience as a twin, did you share a language? Did you, share a community and share culture? What was your experience as a twin?
Well, if you met my sister now lives in Tennessee and I'm in New Jersey. Growing up in elementary school, we were inseparable. We were best friends. If you met my sister, we've got the same style of signing. You might think it's strange because I don't sign as smoothly as some other people in the community, but me and my sister developed our own way of signing, fast signs or really short code words, and we felt like we could read each other's minds almost, is an ESP. And whenever I would go to talk to other people, they wouldn't understand me as well because I'm like, oh, right, I have to explain everything to you, because with my sister, we've got an intimate register. She already understands what I'm talking about. Going into Gallaudet University in the first year, I had my sister.
Which sister's name?
Nicole. Sorry about that. Yeah, Nicole, my sister, had transferred and I was alone. I was shocked. I thought I got this, but as we went on, I realized I have to create my own identity. And it was nice. I felt like my sister had always been there for me and been good company. If we went out, I already had a signing partner. I was never alone.
That's great. The response to that is a family said they have 2 deaf children, and they share the same experience. They do have a connection within the hearing family. So I can imagine, what that's like. And even though your dad is a coda, it is a
Right.
little bit different, but he signs, and I'm sure he signs at home, but still he's a hearing family.
Yeah, we would go to a hearing camp every year, and they had a deaf camp, but me and my sister said, nah, let's go to the hearing camp because there would be a whole bunch of people there, 150 different peers, and we would be the only deaf ones, and we would be really popular because of that. We made lots of friends. If we were at a deaf camp, we might not have that as something special. So we liked going to the camp for hearing people because we had a great time.
That's so cool. That's wonderful. There's another comment from a parent, Toby asked, do you have a package on your website that you can recommend for parents to purchase as resources to help learning and helping the public school system with learning ASL?
I don't have that, but I remember a website that had said it had a learning list of where you could learn ASL, different resources. And I had, there's a link to a deaf teacher who could teach you ASL. That's usually not my expertise, but there are people who do that. I mostly stick with art.
Yeah, Toby, I recommend that you look at the website because I'm sure that there are some things there that you could share with the public school system and they could buy. And just one example of an item, well, actually, there's a few posters that are game posters. They have posters and games. That was in a little bit of a correction there. So that's something that the public school could purchase, you know, and the class could play the games together and they could also enjoy the posters.
And there's a few are in stock. There should be restocking in the fall, so there should be enough for you. So be patient with me while I restock. I'll get more for you.
Hey, sorry, the kids were being really loud, so I couldn't speak. This is Toby. I just want to say I've been following you for about a year, and I love all of your stuff. I was like the magnets that you put on the fridge and all that stuff. We love those resources. I just didn't know if there was additional. I know you mentioned you work with the educational system, so I didn't know if there was additional resources other than that on your website. But yeah, that's perfect.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Toby. Does anyone else have a question or a comment that you would like to make from our audience? I'll see if the audience has a comment, but in the meantime, you said you grew up and you went to a residential school, but it seems like you had a lot of opportunities to socialize and hang out with the hearing community. And you mentioned going to camp, but what other opportunities did you have?
I went to a group every week, or the
Okay.
Girl Scouts, thank you, a Girl Scouts group every week. And they had a dorm activities that we would go to, and Nicole and I felt like it was limited. We knew that Girl Scouts had more activities, so we said we want to transfer to the hearing group and we could do more stuff. And that was the truth. All the way till senior year of high school, we stayed with the hearing group of the Girl Scouts. We got to do a lot. And I also got an award. It was the top award for community service. And I have always liked community service. After school, taking pictures, working in the booths for school activities. I volunteer in that way.
Perfect. I did see someone put up their hand. Hold on, let's take a peek. Hey, I'm a little bit nervous, sorry. I want to ask this question. It might be a little bit of a sticky topic, sensitive question, but the deaf community, well, I've seen anyway, there's a little bit of opposition happening with another company over some, I love you sign language earrings. So what's going on with that? Seems like that would be a bit of a challenge as a business owner to have somebody opposing you. And this is Briella. Brittany, did you want to address that?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. The problem is, the good news is that the earrings went back. But I can't describe it more in detail because it's still going through a legal process. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I can't give you more details about that.
Well, I'm just nosy, you know, I'm a deaf person, I'm nosy. But
No
before,
problem.
you know, I know that you had them before, and then I think was your sister, or the other company is a civil rights activist or advocacy group or something like that. So I was just curious. But this is Briella. Yeah, the families of our audience, it's important for them to know that a deaf-owned business is the same as any other business. It's not like a different kind of business. If you have a business, you go through the same challenges, you go through the same successes in your business owning journey. So, you know, things sometimes come up. I do see 2 questions from Tracy. Did your family try hearing aids or possibly a cochlear implant with you or with your sister? And if so, will you share that experience?
I got a hearing aid when I was 7 or 8, and it wasn't very clear. It was like TV static. I didn't understand anything. It would be loud or quiet, and it came through the same way. And I didn't really want to use it. I did a lot of speech pathology. I went to speech classes, and it was the same every time, just teaching us different sounds. And I didn't have a lot of improvement because I wasn't really putting a lot of effort to learn how to speak. My parents always signed with me. I didn't see the benefit in needing to speak at home, and I used sign language. So reading lips didn't apply to me. I stopped doing that in high school.
Thank you for answering that question. Everyone has a different experience. Was Nicole's experience the same? Okay, yeah, it was.
Yes, it was the same.
Okay, great. I did see another person, Michelle. She has a question and a comment. Michelle, do you want to turn your camera on? Well, hold on a second. Bringing you up. Here we are. Yes, we can see you, Michelle. Okay,
Yes.
good. I actually have 3 things. With the, you know, I've seen that with with the letter H in sign language, when they turn it the wrong way, I will not buy anything that has the wrong handshake. My second comment, I noticed that a deaf artist, it gets excited. I get excited when I see a deaf artist. I don't care what the price is. Or resources to teach ASL, whether it's for hearing students or for the university. If the students want to buy anything from a deaf artist, it's very exciting. So now to find out that you are technically a new artist in my world, and that knowing that you're a deaf artist, whoa, this is super exciting. It's inspiring. I'm yes, going to be shopping. I wanted you to know that. And then I did have one more comment. Let me think. Oh, I'm sorry, Briella, did you say something? I was asking if it was a question or a comment. Okay, so the third thing I was thinking about, you know, when you talk about your business entity, I know that there's a lot of different
Etsy.
things involved. Excuse me. One more time.
Have you thought about doing Etsy?
Oh, thank you, Etsy. Thank you. The interpreter. Etsy. Sorry. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, have you thought about getting involved with Etsy, or do you just kind of prefer to do your own website on your own? I'm just wondering.
I did start with Etsy back in the day. That was when I was first setting up. I used Etsy, and I did see that there was a booth. Sometimes you could sell your art that way, but there's lots of fees with that.
Okay, hold on a second. Are you talking about a platform? Okay, yeah, platform, not a booth. Yeah, because Etsy is free, but there's a lot of fees.
And from a business point of view, if some people say, oh, I bought your thing from Etsy, but they don't realize that it's me, and that with the Etsy, you have their colors, they like orange, but I like having my own color scheme, and I set that up on my website with all of my information, and I prefer it that way. Etsy is generic and it's not very personalized for me. It's easy to advertise and get people to come to my website because I use social media.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you so much.
And as for the H being in the wrong direction, even deaf artists make the H in that direction too sometimes, because they may not have had enough exposure to ASL or have gotten ASL critiques, and they just go ahead and think it's okay and they make it, which means they really need a professional linguist to help give feedback, including me. A lot of times I'll get corrected and I'll make edits. I'm learning too. I'm not a teacher of ASL, I'm an artist.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying your talk tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I love Michelle's comment, or you're saying that you're always learning and in your journey. And really, that helps with the parents that we have here tonight, because they might feel overwhelmed saying, I'm never going to be skilled in sign language. I'm never going to be perfect in this ASL. But I want to be perfect, but I'm never going to be perfect. And it's like, even a deaf person's not perfect. They're still learning new things in their own language. So don't be hard on yourself, everyone. It's just part of the journey of life.
And to piggyback off that, my mother had not grown up with ASL. She learned ASL with me. My mother had learned and said she wanted to learn more, and then decided to ask my father if we could make a signing book. And then my mother and me and my sister took pictures of signs that we were doing, and we created this. My mother made it. That's back from 97. I was maybe 3, and we were playing with things. We'd take a picture and then find out we did it wrong. We'd have to take a picture again. Nowadays, it's easy to take a bunch of pictures on your phone, but back then it was an album and we had to do it by hand. So my mother was motivated and wanted to learn sign language to sign with her 2 deaf children. And then at high school, someone had said, "Oh, your mom is deaf too?" And I said, "No, she's not deaf." But they thought that my mom acted deaf because she would use signs, she wouldn't use English. And in the past, I would have to correct her and she was patient with it. But if you see her today, we've got a very close bond because of our communication. We FaceTime often.
Yeah, would you show us that book again, please? Oh my gosh, is that your sister in the picture?
Yes. And that's my mother. And that's my father. He's a coda.
Oh, it's so great. That's really wonderful. It's cool, actually. It's a wonderful way to, practice your American Sign Language, but using it's like your family history bound in a book. I love this.
True.
Is there anyone else? I mean, really, anybody in the audience can do the exact same thing. There's programs online, or, you can take and Photoshop your pictures and make your own book. You could do it yourself.
It's great for memories and looking back at it.
Well, we're getting close to our time. Time is running out. So if anyone would like to grab an opportunity to make a comment or a question, or just, if you're curious about really anything, please feel free to ask. I have one of Brittany's pieces with me here. Let me pull it up real quick. This is my TSD badge holder. That's my badge for TSD, but this is one of Brittany's pieces here. I use it every single day when I go to work, and I love it. you can see the different, that you can see the quality in the ABC. Here, look, let me show you.
Oh,
See the H,
good
it's in the right
marketing.
direction.
Thank you. Yes.
It's not like this. It's definitely like this.
Love it.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous when I looked. Like, where's the H going to be? Oh, good deal. It's in the right. Michelle would
Approved.
approve.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Sandra says, I'm ordering that tonight.
Thank
Great.
you.
So if there isn't any other comments from the audience, let me just double check. Actually, I have one final question for you, Brittany. Do you have any advice or possibly a tip or a suggestion for the families that are in our audience? Because remember, many of them have children that are birthed to age 5. So this is a new experience on their journey of life. Do you have any tips you'd like to share with them?
It's important. I hope that you know that your children will succeed in whatever they want to be, regardless. I'm thankful to my parents who had let me do an art career, and they didn't discourage me to doing something else that may be more stable or salaried work. They let me take a risk. Even if you do take risks as a person who's deaf, you can still succeed. Make sure that you support your child 100%.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to wrap up the event tonight. So perfect. Yeah. Take risks, encourage your child, and it applies really to every age, not just birth to 5, but teach the children to, ride the bike or drive a car, when leaving home, getting that first job. The opportunities are endless, but you have to take a risk, and it's okay to let them fly or fail. It is okay. Okay, then. Well, thank you, Brittany, for taking your time to be with us tonight. And you're welcome to open up your cameras and say a quick goodbye. But thank you to the interpreters as well for this evening. Great job. All right, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
See ya.
you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, love your work. Love your art. All the comments are great.
Thank you.